I'm Sarah Myerscough, and this is the Insurance Brokers Podcast, where we're talking to the personalities and the businesses that sit behind our industry. If you like what you hear, please hit subscribe on your chosen podcast streaming platform. Good afternoon, Sally. I cannot believe that I'm here talking to the Sally Gunnell. Thank you for joining me on the Insurance Brokers Podcast today. I'm really excited to have you here.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting us.
So I don't think you need an introduction because I think everybody listening will know exactly who you are. But I wonder if you can give me one anyway. Tell me, who is Sally Gunnell?
Gosh, where do I start? What can I remember? I guess sporting-wise, still the only woman to hold all four major titles. I've got to remember them all: Olympics, World, Commonwealth, and Europeans. Now very much involved in the health and well-being business, just as an advocate, and just realising that there's so much from athletics life that helps and supports me, and that I pass on to lots of other people through sort of talks and through the well-being as well. So yeah.
And actually, that's where we first met, was at the Women in Insurance Awards. And I heard you speak, and I was blown away by the positivity and the lessons that can be learned from somebody who's been as successful as you. And that's really what I was hoping to talk about today, because, as you say, the only woman to hold all four of those titles, there's something really special here. So I wonder if you can talk to me, I suppose, to start with, about your passion for health and well-being and what you do, because I know you go into businesses and you talk and you help those businesses support the health and well-being element of their employee base.
I do very much so, and I think it sort of stemmed from, a lot of the talks that I was doing in organisations is around high performance, but so much of it as well is around being the best version that you can be. And how do we do that? How do we build that resilience to deal with all those setbacks and things that get thrown at us, and how do we keep delivering time and time again? And that is no different to what I had to learn on that sports field. And I met some amazing people that were part of my team, around the psychologist and the physiologist and nutritionist and all these sorts of things. And it was about asking for help. It was about using that help to be the best version that you can be. So a lot of what I talk around and around that well-being piece is just about, giving people that information, because, the thing that I found is that, I wasn't the most confident of people, and there's so many people I come up to and they go, God, that's exactly me. And, and it's something that I had to learn. And it's nice to be able to pass that on as we go, really, and there's just so much synergy, really, and a lot of it is just looking at those little tiny elements that seem so insignificant around food or sleep or exercise, but it all adds up to that bigger picture of how we deal with life and deliver to what we're all capable of being able to do.
Do you know, I think that's really interesting, because the confidence piece, I think, is, I would say, probably a bigger problem in a lot of women when you think about imposter syndrome than perhaps it is in men. Imposter syndrome is certainly something that I deal with on a daily basis in my own head. And I walk the dog every morning, and I often have this conversation that goes round and round and round. How do you deal with that? How did you deal with that? Saying you weren't a very confident person in the beginning. What were the strategies that you put in place around that kind of negative self-talk?
Yeah, I mean, I always say it was the last part of the jigsaw. It was the difference between being okay at what I did and actually excelling. Was around, self-belief, believe in your own ability, that whole power of visualisation, and just mental strength. And I think it was about, and I often used to say when I was running, there wasn't a lot between all of us in that final when it came to technical side of it, or strength or speed, but the mental side was massive, and that's what allowed me to win on those four major championships, really. And that was about learning. That was about learning how to visualize, how to see what it is you want to achieve, how to put that into place around, just finding 5 minutes each day to be able to do that, how to shut that inner voice up, which we all have. And, it's always massive, and especially when the pressure's really on. And it was a bit like, how do you control that sort of inner voice? And there are all sort of techniques that I've taken into my life now. You know, I still sometimes think, oh, can I really do this? And then it's like, come on, you put the work in, visualize yourself. I don't know, it could be anything, climbing a mountain, it could be a presentation, it could be standing on stage, but actually taking yourself off and seeing yourself delivering it, feeling confident, knowing your skill, knowing what you're talking about is part of it, and then just practicing it in your mind time and time again. And then shutting that inner voice up that goes, I know, but what happens if I forget that line? Or what happens if I trip over? Or what happens if someone falls asleep? It's all those sorts of things. And if you start thinking about those negative thoughts, and that is what's going to happen. And it's almost like you go, no, I want to visualize me, I know the content, delivering it. And yes, it happens, things happen, but don't go off stage, just be yourself, and how you correct it, how you get back into it. It's all of those sorts of things.
So did you do quite a lot of visualization prior to D-Day in 1992?
Yeah, I did. Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, literally 12 months every day beforehand, and the last few months was just probably 20 times a day. And people often say, wasn't that a little bit overload? But it didn't take long. Sometimes it was only literally like 5 minutes. But it was just, you have to work out what the execution is and how you're going to deliver it. And what do I mean by that? You can't just visualize the end piece. You have to work out what the process is and how that's going to go, and how you pick yourself up if it's you hit a hurdle, or it rains, or you miss a deadline, or someone doesn't do a piece of work that you need to do. You have to have that sort of process, and then it's about, do you know what, you deliver it, you do a great performance, you've got that piece of work, you've nailed the deal, or whatever it may be, and then it's about visualizing what that would feel like to do that. And how, the thing that I've done now is much more around, how do you celebrate? Don't just stop there, but how do you make that part of your life as well?
I like this idea of, so my natural go-to would be to visualize perfect, right? So I visualize the end goal and the perfect steps to it. And I like what you've just said there about visualizing falling off those steps not being perfect, and how you still end up at the end goal. I think that's really interesting, because so many people can get set back.
Yeah, and that's that piece about resilience, because resilience is, to me, is like, because nothing's ever plain sailing. There's always something that gets thrown at you, and that's how you learn. And that's where the resilience piece is like, you've got the armor around you that helps you to put it behind you, find a positive, pick yourself up and move on, and that you're not still dwelling on it. And that is part of that visualization piece as well. It's like, well, how do I deal with those setbacks? What do I put in place? What could they be? It's almost like preparing yourself for situations that you just automatically know. You've got your other plan, it's here, and then you get back onto your A plan. It's like boom, boom, off we go again. And I think what I had done before I'd met that mental sort of preparation is that something like that would happen, and then that was it. I'd throw it away and just think, well, that's it, that's the end of, rather than learning from it, making sure it may not happen again, making a positive out of it, and then getting back onto tracks. And and I always say that we would never excel and do what we do in life unless we've been through some of those situations.
How do you deal with, and I don't know if you've got any examples, there are certain things in life that you can foresee and therefore plan for, and then there are things that come in sideways and knock you flat. When I'm thinking specifically personally about earlier in this year, I had the stroke, knocked me flat, didn't see it coming, completely sideways move, and has had a very significant impact, not all positive, on a lot of different areas of my life. Yeah. So, and I do quite a lot of not visualization, but I think I might try it, but of reframing. So I'll often have a little conversation with myself, and I reframe things, or what's the positive that's come out of it. Yeah. And sometimes it's lip service because I can't feel it.
Yeah.
How have you had something like that? How did you how did you move past?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, that's, you know, what you've been through is very, very tough, isn't it? And I think it's whatever we're going through, you know, and that is really tough. But it is, the thing that I have learned is that you have to find something, has to come out of it, and you might not recognise it yet, and it might be a long-term thing, and you know, maybe, you know, it's just a positive way of thinking. Because if you just kept thinking, why does everything go wrong with me? Why is this always happens to me? It's such a negative downfall. And even if, you know, and I think it's just a psyche thing that I'd sort of put in, that, do you know what, this has happened. It's going to happen, and I've got to find the positive, and I've got to move on. And maybe it doesn't, but maybe it's just that it's having that positive outlook, because if not, we would all be completely, you know, down on the ground and not being able to find it. And I think in some respects, you know, you can't change things overnight. And I think that's the thing, you know, sometimes I always think, you know, I drive my friends mad, or because, you know, we'll chat about something and I'm a bit of a fix-it. And you can't fix everything straight away. And I think sport has taught me that. And what I've got to learn is that you can't fix things overnight. Things take time, and sometimes I have to go, whoa, okay, step back a bit here. You know, you can't fix everybody's issues, you can't do everything, but you can help and support, and it might take a little bit longer. And that's all I would say to you, is that, you know, you've got to stay positive. Something good will come out of this, and it might not be happening now, but you will be a better person from it, and you'll understand yourself more. And I think you have to have that sort of mindset and hang on to that, just for your own sanity as well.
One of the things I like what you've just said, and it's made me think that what we're talking about goes back to imposter syndrome and self-belief. If you can like yourself and trust yourself enough to let the process be, this is a really shit situation. But there is a positive, and I will find it, and I don't have to find it now, and I don't have to do all of this extracurricular stuff in order to solve. It's just, something's happened, where's the silver lining coming out of it? And I quite like that idea, actually.
Yeah, I think it just takes time. I don't think we can fix everything straight away. And also, I think, you know, I think as a nation, I think we're very quick to always put ourselves down. And, you know, there's horrible things, you know, what you've been through is really, really tough. But we've either got to go, we've got to pick ourselves up. You know, we don't know what next year's going to happen or around the corner, and you could look back and go, 9 times out we go, gosh, you know, that was an awful situation I had for the whole year. But do you know what? I'm in a better place now, and that's what you've got to hang on to, you know, because so often I think, you know, when I had, I don't know, injuries or disappointments or lost races or whatever else, and Bruce, my coach, used to say to me, do you know, it doesn't matter what happens now. Don't ever lose sight of where you want to be in 3 years' time. And I think that's what you've got to. You've got to do those small steps to get you over the little situations and to stay alive. But sometimes it's just having that little image up there 3 years down the line, or whatever else it may be, 2 years, which seems ages, but it's important to have that, and that just gets you through the next sort of days. And that's how I used to deal with, you know, injuries. It was just taking each day at a time, very, very small steps of achievement and confidence to build up to where you needed to be.
So I wonder what you think about this, right? So one of the things that I'd like to talk about, and you've mentioned, is goal setting. So in my worst moments this year, I've done goal setting, but on a really minuscule level. Yep. So I have a whiteboard, and I put Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and the 4 things I have to achieve. I have to walk the dog for an hour, I have to do 100 squats, I have to drink 2 litres of water, and I have to do between 3 and 5 actions in my business that will move it forward. And if I spend the rest of the day in bed, that is okay. But those are the 4 things I have to achieve. So I'm interested in your thoughts around goal setting, both big and small, and how they can... And I mean, a lot of people listening to this are you know, business owners, directors, account execs, account handlers that have targets and you know, ambitions in their career lives. And I think it's the same, whether it's, you know, I'm just interested to your thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have those ambitions, because I often see so many people that haven't got a meaning to a purpose to their day, and they are literally just rocking up and they don't really know the direction of what they're doing. They're just sitting down, and I think that doesn't give you energy for life. That doesn't give you that fulfillment. That is not who you are as a person. So I think that whole thing of knowing what you want to achieve, however big, however small it is a massive motivator, especially for me. It's I think it was something I was taught from a very young age, 14. When as part of the coaching, being coached was about thinking on your feet. It was about what do you want out of this training session. So I think it's been part of my life for years. And the day I retired was like, what now? And yes, when I was younger, I had that dream goal of being an Olympic champion, but now I don't have massive like one. I have lots of little ones, and some of them are really insignificant. I think when I retired, it was like, God, I can do some dangerous sports. I can go skiing, I can go karting, and that's a vision. That's something in your head and something that I really wanted to do, and that's fine. So I think it is the thing that does get me out of bed every morning. And I am a little bit of a list person, and I think that's so right of what you're doing there. And I think sometimes it's not doing too many on that list, because I think that's where we have that overload. And it needs to be achievable goals. I think that's really important. And some of them might be very insignificant to others, but it's meaning to yourself. And sometimes you don't have to have them every day. You reach sort of, you get into your 50s and you're like, whoa, hang on a minute, what's going on? People are getting a little bit ill, and you start thinking about all those things. So, we've just started at, 50 plus, thinking, well, what does the next 30 years? Why do I have to be thinking about retirement? But I want to do things that I'm really interested in, and I want to still learn new things. So, we're starting to plan what the next 30 years is going to look like. And I think that's just it's a positive mindset, and I think that is what helps more than anything. It's like you're not giving up, you're not just rocking up every morning and go, what's this all about? You're putting little things in place, and I think what it does to me is it is about confidence, it's about development, it's just about, again, going back to just being happy within yourself. More, you don't want any more than that.
You've just talking about what the next 30 years look like through 2022. You've been doing a sort of I'm not sure what to call it, but like a process or about optimizing your age. Can you tell me a bit about what that is? Because I think it sounds fabulous.
Yeah, well, I think that's sort of come through, reaching 50, as you say, and we're very lucky. John and my husband and I have still got our parents around, and they're sort of in their 80s and 90s. And they're doing really well, but I sort of think we are in a generation now where medicine is so good that we are going to be able to live longer, but we all want the good quality of life. We don't want to be sitting in a care home for 20 years and not be functioning. We don't want to be falling over. We don't want to. So I think it's about I think something with sports for me is all about prevention. It's about what can we do, what can we put in place. So optimize your age is about, right, what can we start doing now in our, sometimes 40s and 50s and 60s that are going to allow us to still be able to have an informative conversation when we're in our 80s and 90s, still be able to walk down the road and, and we haven't lost our muscle strength and our balance and what exercises. And I must admit, my exercises and what I eat, lots of things have changed since I've sort of, hit our 50s, because I can't do what I used to do. So I'm coming to terms with that, just physically. But there's new things that I need to do. It's like, I've changed my exercise to much more strength-based and still cardio, still doing my bike rides and my walks more and run a bit and stuff. But I've just changed and how we adapt, and it just fascinates me. There's so much knowledge out there about, what happens to the body as we age and what we can do. And that's where I'm on, really, trying to sort of share that information.
So, does yoga feature in that?
Pilates more, but I do like my yoga. So yoga much more in the summer. I'll go and outside somewhere and just find a little space. It has to be done outside, and I don't know quite why. Pilates I do much more through the winter on my reformer, but that is, to me, that is my downtime. It's my thinking time. It's my mobility. That's where that fits into my life, and it's quite a personal, holistic sort of view in it. Those sorts of things. That's my downtime, I call it.
I love it. What about from a nutritional perspective, in terms of anything you've changed?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that's fascinating me more at the moment is around gut health and how I can sometimes feel really bloated and things like that. So I've tried to sort of shorten my eating window down. There's quite a lot about intermittent fasting, and I'll probably won't have something till about 10, 11 in the morning, and then try and finish my evening meal at about 7 at the latest. And it just gives your body time to recover, repair, digest, and it just helps my sort of gut health. And I always start in the morning much more with a smoothie, make sure I've got my, prebiotics and all those sort of things, fruit and vegetables, and I'm just sort of make a nice healthy smoothie just to kick off the day. And I think it just helps and supports me, and another positive thing to try and think, well, okay, I put all the goodness in my body at the beginning of the day, and now I can just get on and do what I need to do. And nutrition for me is much more about energy and being able to deal with, again, day to day. But I have good days and bad days. Weekends are usually off, and still have a bottle of wine with friends and eat takeaways and stuff. But it's knowing that I can't do that all the time. So it's and that has changed. I think I used to be able to eat what I wanted to eat without putting any weight on, but can't do that anymore. So I've had to adjust and change and understand, and still learning, still on the process of what does that look like. And I think, now they're saying nutrition is a very individual thing, and what works for you and for other people.
I think gut health is something I'm quite interested in, especially how gut health affects mood and mindset.
Yeah.
And they call it your third brain or second brain, don't they?
Yeah,
Your gut. I think it's really, really important. And one of the lessons that I have learnt this year let me rephrase that. One of the lessons I am learning this year repeatedly is about how those actions you do, the small actions, what you eat, just being outside for 45 minutes with the dog. I can't run at the moment. I'm a slow runner. I've never been very fast. But I've run a few marathons and things like that. I can't even run a mile at the moment without something breaking. But so walking is fine.
Brilliant.
And it's the food, the sleep, the water. I probably do drink too much wine, but as long as I make sure I drink my 2 to 3 litres of water a day, there's a check. So I'm so interested in how all of those things affect business performance. So Boston Tullis is mine. What do I do? Where do I take it? What's my goal? And sometimes in my worst moments where I'm not doing those basic things, I have a lot less energy to do the things I need to do, and I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, I think people sort of say to me, I feel so tired in the afternoon, and and then you chat and you break it down, and I think what people aren't doing is connecting all those little things. So often you're tired in the afternoon is because you've had a big stodgy lunch, with too many carbohydrates rather than proteins or fruit and veg and that sort of thing. How many people don't realise that sleep is so important to recovery, mental health, being proactive, all of those things. And you sort of say, well, I don't sleep very well. Fine, lots of us don't sleep very well, but we've got to find ways of how can we improve that. So just rather than accepting things almost, I think it's about, okay, well, I will eat a little bit earlier, so I'm not still digesting my food at night time, which is often, one of the reasons. I'm going to get off my screens, I'm not going to be looking at my emails or social media at 10 o'clock at night, because that doesn't help. So I think it's just linking all of those little things. And actually people go, oh, okay, well, I feel so much happier, so much more productive. And, I can deal with somebody criticizing me, or or a really heavy piece of work I've got to really think about, because I've looked at all of those things. And I know we're all of us, we might have had a bad weekend, and today, I've overdone it over the weekend, not feeling brilliant, and that's fine, and accepting it. But it's now, for the next few days, I go, right, okay, knuckle down. And it's just realising you can't do that all the time, and you are in control. And again, it's learning, it's finding that information to fuel you.
And the focus and the reason that you want to fuel you. I think that's really important for me, and I'm hearing that a lot from you, so I'm feeling positive about myself. Thank you. I wanted to ask you, you've mentioned walking and what the next 30 years look like. You and it's John, your husband?
Yeah.
You and John have just done the big climb. Tell me about your big climb you've done.
Oh, we did, because it's quite scary that it's 30 years since I won in Barcelona, that Olympic gold medal. So we wanted to sort of celebrate the whole sort of year. This was this year now. And we decided to go back to one of the charities that we were involved in 30 years ago, which was the Ball Free Foundation, the conservation of animals welfare. And we decided, they were doing a walk up Mount Kenya. So we thought, we've never done that. We've done running things, we've done biking, but we've never done an actual walk. And I just find personally it makes me focus, it gets me out, it gets me active. So I try and do something every year. It's not always going to be as big as this, don't you worry. And it just gets you doing a little training program for sort of 3 or 4 months before, and I got a couple of friends involved, and good positive feel around it. But it was so hard. I couldn't believe, and everyone was like, "What?" And I think it was taking myself out of a massive comfort zone. Sleeping in huts with 14 of you, with one toilet, and people snoring, and eating the basic foods, and 12 hours of walking a day, and sheer drops as we're climbing up, and it was like not what I'd expected. And it wasn't until I came down that you start to appreciate what you've done, and to think about who you are as a person. Because I sort of had to pick myself up, and I had to help John, who was freaking out a little bit, my husband, and it was, it just reminded me of what your strengths are and what you are capable of doing. And I think sometimes we forget that. We forget who we are, what we're about. And I think that was one of the biggest positive things out of it. And it's not something I want to do and scare myself every time, but I think sometimes you just have to be reminded of who you are personally yourself and what your own strengths are. And
being out of your comfort zone and normal environment, it's a good way to do that.
Yeah.
What's your 2023 challenge? Have you decided on it yet?
We haven't done yet. We're sort of thinking about it. I haven't quite got my head around it. It was a big fundraising event. So in your mind you go, gosh, how many times can you ask people for fundraising and things like that? So we're just looking. It might not be something, but I think the thing that I've learned is I need to. I'm looking at a lot at the moment about, brain stimulation, and sometimes it's not about always being good at everything. It's always about sometimes trying things that you aren't so good at and taking yourself out of that comfort zone, and then working out how to be a little bit better. So I think that's sort of where I'm going with something. I'm not quite sure what it may be, because someone said to me that, you can get very good at Sudoku, but that stops your brain health because you're very good at it. So you've got to start doing something else that you go, oh God, this is horrible feeling. And, maybe it'd be knitting, who knows? But yeah, it doesn't have to be massive, does it? That's the thing. But I think it feels, just to challenge yourself in something.
I can highly recommend trying to make a life-size nutcracker out of things you have already in the house. It was very challenging. It was very fun.
Wow.
And Ned is nearly 6 foot tall and will be a permanent feature in my Christmas household.
There you go. I like it. Oh, that's
absolutely. Sally, if you have 3 top tips to give about I'm not going to say. I'm going to say about optimizing your well-being and productivity. That's what I'm going to say. So your top 3 tips for optimizing your well-being and productivity. What would they be?
I think one is to do some form of exercise. You know, we have free endorphins when we get the blood pressure up, the heart pumping, and what that can do to your brain. And I think it's about tapping into that and finding what that is. And that might be a brisk walk, that might be walking up some stairs. But I think everybody needs to be active and can be active, whatever ability, whatever shape you are. It's just finding something that you can physically do, and I think that is a very strong piece for your mental well-being and optimizing your age. I think secondly, I think it is about mobility. So I think that whole piece around just being able to get up and down out of your chairs. You know, so often people are struggling because they haven't got strength or mobility in their thighs. So just keeping that leg strength, that mobility, doing some stretching, balancing on one leg, you know, a few raises as you're putting your kettle on in the morning, simple little things, you know, a few squats, doesn't have to be massive. That would be good. If you could just do 5 exercises every morning while you wait for the kettle. Brilliant. And thirdly, I think it has to be having that positive mindset. And, you know, I come across people that they put themselves down all the time. The glass is half empty. And again, you know, this is free up here. And I think it's learning to tap into it and not beating yourself up and having that positive mindset. And, you know, what you are capable of being able to achieve is just massive.
I really resonate, particularly with the last thing, because some of the work that I've been doing on myself this year is about learning to be kind to yourself, which I think is very, very interlinked to being able to have a positive mindset. So that really resonates with me, and I am going to add to my board 5 exercises for me to do every morning, mobility exercises, because I'm 39 and I get out of bed in the morning and I look like I'm 99 because I'm like, oh, my back, my knees, blah, blah, blah. So that's what I'm going to take away from this.
Brilliant.
I'm really, really grateful for your time. And anybody listening, I hope you've got a lot out of listening to Sally. If Sally, if you're happy, I'll put your website and details in the bottom. So anybody listening that you know, wants to have a conversation with you, either for their business or events, then that'd be great. And I just want to say thank you. And I'm so excited. I've told everybody I'm interviewing Sally Gunnell today. And everybody's like, oh my God. So I'm so excited and I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Brilliant. And can I just say, I'm really excited at the moment. We're working alongside a company called White Calm, and we're doing lots of fireside chats about, you know, all sorts of different issues, from, you know, skin aging to bones and health and menopause and all sorts of different things. So I'm really excited talking to the professionals on that. And also we're going to be doing some exercises with them as well. So yeah, so check us out, White Calm.
I will put the link in the show notes to this episode. So if you want to check this out, and I highly recommend you do, I will be. The notes will be, the link will be in the show notes, so we can all follow that. So thank you.
Yeah, there's a platform and an app with it. So it's very achievable, and access is so easy for everybody. So yeah, fabulous.
It's in the show notes, people. Thank you very much for your time, Sally. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Insurance Brokers podcast. We'd love to hear from you, and don't forget to subscribe on your chosen podcast streaming platform and check us out on YouTube.